Hello and welcome to another episode of the podcast for the recently deceased. I'm Nate Roberts.
I am Rodney Godek. How are we doing tonight, brother?
We're doing all right, neighbor. We're doing all right.
Mm-hmm. That's good to
Um,
hear.
I'm glad to be back. I always,
Mm-hmm.
I always love getting in the studio and chatting about the
Yeah, man, you
scare.
sound nice and mellow tonight. I like the
Yeah,
intro.
yeah,
Because we're
yeah.
talking about some mellow, fun movie tonight, man.
Well, after last week's episode, I got a little excited. We're talking about
Oof,
the
yeah.
talking about the crow and his manly mamma jammas.
God, do you remember the socks that he was wearing? He had those red socks from time to time, and like you just see the slip of it because his veil or whatever the hell you call his outfit would just ride up. You could see his leg, his calf was showing a little bit, and I was like, this is great.
Yeah,
Bellissimo.
at least. Mwah. All right.
Say when.
Tonight, a movie from the other side of the tracks.
Is offensive.
We'll be we'll be reviewing.
God, you're starting early. Oh man.
I
Trigger
just mean
warning on this
I
video.
just mean not Italy is what I mean.
Demonetized.
We are reviewing the horror comedy The Blackening.
All right. Seven friends go away for the weekend and end up trapped in a cabin with a killer who has a vendetta. Will their street smarts and knowledge of horror movies help them stay alive? Probably not. Directed by Tim Story, written by Tracy Oliver and Dwayne Perkins, starring Grace Byers, Jermaine Fowler, Melvin Gregg, and really this is an ensemble cast of actors that did an amazing job. So yeah, mate, The Blackening,
The Blackening.
the rare horror comedy that I think worked.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, okay. So right off the bat, before we get into our quick
That
synopsis, the first thing I would think of in a movie like this is that it was written and directed by Keenan Ivory Wayans and stars his brothers, right? Um, and we've seen a
Literal
lot.
Brothers.
Yeah, yeah, Wayne or Damon and Marlon, literal brothers. Yeah,
Someone got it.
yeah. Okay, all right. We've we he rocked Scary Movie 2, 3 and 4, and if there was a fifth one, who knows? But this was not a spoof as much as it was a
Mm-hmm.
horror comedy. It wasn't like a direct parody.
Right.
Um, it was taking advantage of the genres, right? The
Mm-hmm.
black comedy stereotypes and cabin in the woods horror tropes, kind
Yeah.
of thrown together, and um, I would say it was successful. I really enjoyed this movie. Um, I thought it was hilarious, actually.
Yeah. This was 100%. I mean, it's horror comedy is a difficult genre, and it's just a statement of fact that it's probably a comedy first, and that's important because you're supposed to be having fun during the movie. So I think the comedy has to be first, and then the horror element is just really the set dressing of the situation that these comedic actors are finding themselves in, and you still have to leverage each of those appropriately to make it work. I think that the Blackening does this to a high degree of accuracy as far as what it's doing. It's always hitting the right notes. You might not understand or get every single joke depending on your appreciation or awareness or knowledge of Black culture. Um, but I don't think that it's an exclusatory experience. I think that there's enough that's hit with a broad spectrum where it's just people. It's just that there's like little niche jokes that you could probably have a lot more enjoyment if you are a bit in touch with people in this world, specifically in America. I think a fantastic film overall. Completely enjoyed it. Um, the setup of the movie makes sense. It's an enjoyable experience. All of the characters have their own uniqueness. Each one has times to shine during the movie in unique ways. There's callback after callback of running gags in this movie that pay off. And there's a really dumb gag early on where you're like, this is stupid. By the end of the movie, it is a chef's kiss of a moment that you will love. Like it's so satisfying. It builds and builds and builds. At no point does it drag. The situations are always entertaining. You're engaged the whole way through. I would say that the Blackening is excellent at what it's doing. Because of what it's doing, it's like it's going to be limited in general. I'm landing the Blackening at 7 out of 10.
Okay. All right. So, The Blackening, directed by Tim Story and brought to life by the comedic genius of Three Pete. This film was a cocktail of satire, slasher tropes, and a heavy splash of wit. While the humor absolutely slayed, I laughed way more than I expected. I have to say, the horror element, though, felt a bit dull around the edges. For a horror comedy, there was room to amp up the scares or maybe just double down on the gore. That would have been a welcome addition. The ensemble cast was spot on, and the film brilliantly riffed on the racial stereotypes. It, although it left me wishing for a sharper horror bite. All in all, a solid 6 out of 10.
Right on, man. Yeah, I mean, look, similar feelings. We're both in the ballpark. Uh, yeah, for sure. I think
Yeah,
that your points are fair. Like, it's just, you're never gonna get the horror element to work properly. I mean, I suppose the only thing that people can hang their hat on is maybe recent, possibly, is like Tucker and Dale, as far
sure.
as having a really good horror element with the comedy. But
Right,
I'm not even that big of a fan of that movie. I'm not. It's fine.
sure. Well, yeah, that's why I
It's
mentioned the
just a
gore.
weird blend.
That's why I mentioned the gore specifically. Like the
Yeah.
fact that these guys were shooting uh, crossbows, and the gore was turned way down.
Yeah.
Like the crossbows were funny, but like they could have had a more gruesome weapon. There could have been more gruesome kills, and even the kills, the absurdity of the kills could have ramped up the comedy
Yeah,
and
that's fair.
given us more of a horror path. It's fine that they didn't do it. The movie was great as it was. In fact, one of my favorite things about the movie was Ranger White, Diedrich
Yeah.
Bader. I had no
Oh,
idea.
weird. The one white guy in the movie was one of your favorite parts.
This is white to base. White to base. This is white. White. White.
It was one of my
Okay.
favorite additions.
Suspect. I liked when the white guy finally showed up. Oof,
Hey, he
man.
died. I'm glad he died.
Hey, we're in spoiler territory now,
Yeah, we
folks.
are in spoiler territory. Um, his death was hilarious. Like,
I don't. To be honest, I don't remember how.
oh,
Oh no, yeah, it was
okay.
great. He tried to get back in, and they didn't trust him, and yeah, it
Yeah, they wouldn't
didn't
let him
work
back
out.
in the car
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
because he was a white guy.
But he had the mask and the glove, and so like they
Yeah,
didn't know what to believe,
he
and he didn't really have a
he's
good explanation.
he found it on the ground. He's a cop. They didn't believe him.
I know, but
It was great and funny. Um,
exactly, it
I
made
loved.
sense on both sides.
I wish I
They
had the
were
cast.
very fine people.
I wish I had the cast in front of me.
Oh sure, which
Uh,
one?
I think it was.
Describe them in racially insensitive ways.
Yes, I think it was
Uh,
Grace.
the,
Was the actress's name?
oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
She,
She was the lead, the love interest. I think of no, no, no,
no,
no,
no,
no.
no, no. She wasn't anyone.
I don't remember.
She was the one who took the Adderall.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay.
And I loved how like when she first took the Adderall
Yes,
and it like
she's
kicked
a
in,
real smart one.
she was like acting like a white college girl for a little while.
Yeah. No, the
Just
Adderall
like
bit was
it
great.
was so so good.
Yeah.
Like they,
That's
you
the
know,
thing about that. Like, there's so many bits in the movie,
yeah,
and each character is doing their thing. Like, there's times where
yeah.
each one is just like over the top, and you love it.
I even like the starting couple
Oh, well, that was
who
great. Well, that's
yeah,
the funny thing about it. And they
that's
even mention that
Jay
whenever they
Farrow,
get
right?
into the Jay Farrow
Yeah.
and what's her face? Was that Yvonne? I think so. But they play up the fact that like they're the higher billed actors in the movie and they're only in it for like that intro. I think they even make a joke whenever they're playing the board game.
Right, right.
Uh,
Yeah, they're like it's like Scream.
it's Drew Barrymore, yeah,
Yeah, it's Drew
Samara
Barrymore,
Weaving.
exactly.
But Christ, like It's so the setup I think is weird. Do you remember when we reviewed Gatlop?
Yeah, the other board game horror movie,
Fucking Gatlop.
the Gatlop.
Uh, so that movie was not great. They did a good job with the people that were in it to kind of create this environment or this mood, this friendship, and you kind of did attach to them. But it was not very funny or engaging. But it's more or less the same kind of premise. Friends in a situation that then play a game that has other intentions and is nefarious in nature, and hilarity ensues. It was just funny to see such a similar setup. But the way that the Blackening does it, like it's natural. It's kind of funny that it's what is it? It's the Juneteenth weekend
Yeah,
that they're having this
yeah. It's a
reunion.
Juneteenth
Uh,
celebration at a cabin
yeah,
in the woods with a bunch of
yeah.
drugs.
hmm
Yeah.
They're all playing spades, so there's all kinds of references with that. That if you get it, you get it. But then they come across the board game, and just the overt racism of like the look
Oh,
of the board game with the
yeah.
blackface little Sambo dude that they talk about. It's just so like you're so offended on their behalf, like at certain things, but like it's just they embrace however the top and the satire of it because they're not laughing at, they're laughing with, and kind of bringing you in such a way that like I think that it's approachable even for audiences that might have a bit of a trigger warning with this kind of subject matter.
Sure.
Uh, but everything about that premise, and then answering questions to prove your blackness in order to survive the horror situation that they're in, hilarious touch. Like it could have been any kind of a game. It could have been something dumb, but the fact that it's all wrapped up into these racially charged situations is very smart, really well written, and the fact that each character is uniquely identifiable with what they do. Again, kudos to the writing because they're all fully fleshed out and have their own time to shine. It's hard to not say a lot of great things. I gush about this movie. Um,
Yeah, yeah, I loved it. I love the one character who like used to be, the kind of like hood character, at least in his past, and they keep assuming he has a gun, and he's like, "No, I don't have a gun. I've changed." And then when the shit goes down, he does have a gun. Like,
and then they're like, Uh, and yeah, so much happens. He's
yeah,
shooting the gun, and the guy's holding the gun sideways, and then the nerdy black guy like
yeah,
takes the gun and flips it
turns,
upright for him so he
yeah,
could shoot more accurately with it. Just like this, the little subtle things like that that have no business being as hilarious as they are, but it's just it does such a great job of like and whenever you're having a comedic movie, you need the punches to keep coming. It has to be hit, hit, hit,
yeah,
hit, hit, so that you're just rolling and the laughter is building and building and building, and that and like a scene like that where it's just joke after joke, it does all that heavy lifting for you.
yeah, yeah. I
Um,
mean, like you just mentioned, the character design was excellent. How every
yeah,
character was almost completely different, so that they all had a
yeah.
very unique station in the film.
Yeah, a take
Yeah,
on the events that were happening that informed why they would do this or that, and how they would answer the questions in the game, why they'd be beneficial, the way that they would, and eventually it would pit them against one another.
right,
Uh,
right.
because they,
When the final question comes out, who's the blackest, right? And and they immediately just throw out the nerdy guy because
yeah.
he's just not in the friend group.
Well, and he's the like what seventh wheel or whatever the hell it is.
Yeah, yeah,
No one really expected to see him. He wasn't really a part of the friend group, and so it's the easiest to let go because none of them are really connected to him. Ultimately to their undoing. That was a not a smart decision. But like the jokes with him, especially, I've rewatched it because I didn't catch it, or I was watching someone else talk about it, but I didn't catch it whenever it first happened. But I don't know if you did. He's they get him to leave. And what? Oh, he's on his way out the door, and he's like, "All lives matter."
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Comes
yeah,
out.
yeah, yeah. Well, he voted for Trump, right? Like that was
Yeah, yeah,
part of
yeah.
that was one of the
It's
jokes too.
uh such dark humor and delivered so dryly so
Yeah,
frequently that it's wonderful.
yeah.
The joke, the gimmick that I was the running gag that I loved so much that I wanted to have a callback here, um, is the mind reading.
Oh yes, yes.
When it first happens, I'm like, this is kind of dumb. The girls are talking to themselves, and like I get it. It's like a little bit hokey, and it's like
Yeah,
it's fine. It's like a throwaway thing. But then it happens a couple more times where people are talking to each other, telepathically, and then the payoff where they're planning their turn on the
Their escape,
on the
right?
guy on the
Yeah,
nerd.
and it's
They're
the
gonna take him
the
out.
two guys.
They're
Like,
planning it on three, and
yeah.
then they look at him. He's like, I can hear you, right? To his mind,
Yeah.
and it just like explosions of energy just are pouring out of my brain. I loved that moment. It was so smart and
Yeah.
so seemingly and I like from the beginning you did not see it coming, and it was like such a perfect payoff. What an amazing experience to go through that. That like really solidified it. Like there's no way I'm not going to have fun. All the horror stuff, the motivations of the nerdy guy and why he's doing what he's doing. I don't really care. It's the same kind of thing. Like I was wronged in the past for this reason. It was a bit of a dark turn with the actual story that he went through. Uh,
Right, right, because it was their
having done
fault.
time
Their fault. He
for
kept
driving
drinking, though,
drunk.
right?
Right.
Yeah, they kept pouring the
Uh,
shots down his throat or whatever. I mean, he drove drunk. It's his fault,
mhm.
but like
Yeah.
he blamed them, right?
Right, a weird circumstance, but it worked fine,
Yeah.
and it was just fantastic for everything else that was happening. The crossbow stuff was kind of like lame and annoying, like it dinging off the hood of the car. It's in some of the
Yeah.
it's at weird angles in the car, like on the hood, looking like like
Yeah.
those Far Side cartoons, Gary Larson, where there's a Native American surrounding the wagons, and you get arrows everywhere. Like that's what these Jeep Cherokees look like outside their house. Uh, uh, I'll be honest. I thought that the end scene, the end credit scene, uh, I was a little bit offended. That sounds insane to
First
say,
time chatter.
but I was like,
That's you.
why even
Oh.
bother with that joke? But I mean, it made sense, and I guess it worked. But I thought it was a little questionable. I was like, that's a little harsh, a little too soon, because they call the fire department because they don't want to get shot by the
Shot.
police.
Right.
And so then the fire department shows up and they hose them. And I was like, "Oh my god, like that's really fucking dark." Like
Yeah.
talking like, goddamn civil rights movement where fire hoses are being used, and I'm like, but hey, you're taking ownership of this fucking insanely awful history that it works. But I was like, "Oh my god, I can't believe they did that." They did it.
Yeah, I mean, so there were a couple, or I guess one snafu that I noticed that I just couldn't ignore. Um,
Yeah.
so they stab the guy in the foot with the black boots, and then they kill the
Uh-huh.
guy. They kill the guy with the what shoes are those called? Those
Timberlands?
Timberlands. They kill the guy with the Timberlands. And then the other guy, when they come back to the second guy, he's also wearing Timberlands now. So we didn't go back. So there was a little wardrobe malfunction. Maybe they did it on purpose.
Continuity error.
Maybe they did it on purpose. Maybe it was just a continuity
Yeah.
error. But they said it out loud that the boots were different, so there must be a second
Right.
killer. And then they forgot or whatever. No big deal. It's just something I noticed. Then you mentioned not not last week, but Cobweb in the Cobweb review,
Uh-huh.
how I didn't predict anything.
Yeah.
The second I saw the nerd in the gas station, I was like, he's the killer.
Sure.
Like 1,000%, he's the killer. I will bet my
That's
entire
fair.
bank account
Yeah.
on
They're not
that.
worried about it. That's fine.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean,
I
that
mean,
makes sense. Yeah.
yeah, horror
Who
comedy
cares?
slasher. It's not
Right.
supposed to be a mystery, I guess.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, it was good though. I really enjoyed it. Great movie.
So,
I
yeah.
recommend it to anyone
Oh,
who
yeah.
hasn't seen it, hasn't heard of it. Definitely check it out. I gave it a 6 out of 10.
And I had landed at a 7 for the Blackening out of 10. So, um,
Yeah. So go watch it.
absolutely.
Uh,
I mean, you need a feel-good movie, horror tangentially related here. So treat yourself. Go watch the Blackening.
I'm Nate Roberts for the podcast for the recently deceased,
And I'm Rodney Godek. Take care.
and we'll see you next time.
You split up, but you're all black.
Whoa, do not get comfortable.
I know you didn't.
Bold move, bro.